Welcome back to our series of Pixar reviews as we build up to the release of The Incredibles 2 this summer, which will be Pixar's 20th full-length animated feature. Let's take a look at Pixar's second feature film, A Bug's Life. Following the unprecedented, enormous success of 1995's Toy Story, Pixar knew they had to try and emulate that success again in their follow-up just 3 years later. Pixar would unfortunately end up going up against the other animation giants DreamWorks in 1998, who were about to release their first full-length feature, and both studios were releasing films about struggling bugs in a colony. For DreamWorks it was Ants, for Pixar it's A Bug's Life, and released in the US a mere month apart, Pixar was surely feeling the pressure, particularly as Ants went on general release first. They needn't have worried too much. A Bug's Life is a competent follow-up to the groundbreaking Toy Story, despite not being as engaging or stunning in its animation. From the moment we pan over the top of the hill and see the ants tirelessly adding food to the mound for the grasshoppers, we know we're in for another great ride. We're quickly introduced to Flick, voiced by US stand-up comedian Dave Foley, as the fantastical inventor trying to impress the future queen of the colony, all the while showing that he's a calamitous creation, as his actions within the first 10 minutes provide the catalyst for the remainder of the story. From the outset, it's Randy Newman back on composer duties to follow up the brilliant score he engineered for Toy Story, and it's another lively, energetic score this time around, reflecting the family nature of the ants in the colony, but also showcasing the villain, Hopper, as a Pixar force to be reckoned with, and the first true villain in the Pixar canon. Kevin Spacey voices this intimidating leader of the grasshoppers, undermining his inferiors when he returns to the ant colony with his cronies at the end of the season to collect the food the ants have been collecting for them. Hopper is an imposing villain who proves to be one of the more interesting characters in the film. So far, a promising start. It's only when Flick decides to leave the colony in search of more help in rebuilding the food for the grasshoppers that the story starts to fall a little flat. Flick recruits a band of circus bugs led by P.T. Flea and instructs them to return to the colony with him to help them. If P.T. Flea sounds familiar, it's because he's voiced by John Ratzenberger, or Ham from Toy Story. Ratzenberger has proven over the years to be the go-to for Pixar, as he has voiced a range of different characters over the years in various features. Whilst the circus bugs bring more colour and some humour to proceedings, they aren't really Pixar's most interesting side characters, and some of the humour falls flat. In fact, A Bug's Life is actually a disappointingly dull story for the follow-up to the innovative Toy Story. There are less in-jokes for the adults to appreciate, and in many respects the film actually does pale in comparison to DreamWorks' effort Ants, released just a month before it. This is probably the only time, however, that DreamWorks has actually improved over Pixar over the last 20 years, though, so obviously Pixar is still brilliant at what they do. All that being said, Flick is still a great underdog character from Pixar. He makes a mistake that could jeopardise both him and the rest of his colony, but he gets the chance to redeem himself and prove his worth to his family as he squares up to Hopper in the final showdown. Hopper's comeuppance, facing the mother bird and her babies, is actually one of the more grisly endings for a Pixar antagonist, but an effective one given how menacing the character has been up to this point. The Crawford-Clark close-up standout scene is in the final act of the film, where Flick and the ant colony finally stand up to the grasshoppers and realise that although they're diminutive by comparison, they are greater in number, and ultimately the grasshoppers rely on the ants for survival. It's a great little speech that justifies the rest of the narrative and drags A Bug's Life up from the bottom of the Pixar pile. The animation is particularly strong in this section of the film, with the bugs braving the thunderstorm. Ultimately, whilst it was going to be a struggle to follow up the extraordinary success of Toy Story, Pixar gave audiences a chance to see how they can animate wildlife, with a colourful tale containing interesting characters and a sweet message about standing up to oppressors despite difference in stature. It's a shame, therefore, that Pixar felt the need to start their thankfully short-lived tradition of having a character blooper reel over the end credits. This would continue with Toy Story 2, and then become a thing of the past. It's not the weakest effort from Pixar over the years, but it does sit on the bottom half of the pile. For what it's worth, though, if you enjoyed Toy Story and you haven't checked out Pixar's second feature yet, give A Bug's Life a chance.
Take a chance on me.
Sorry.
Pixar fans, tell us, where would you put A Bug's Life among the Pixar canon? Perhaps we've missed something and you'd have it in your top tier. Let us know your thoughts by commenting below or get involved with us on social media. You can search Crawford-Clark Close-Up on Facebook and Twitter. You can also drop us an email, crawfordclarkcloseup@gmail.com. All the details are, again, at the end of the video. Let us know what you think of our Pixar series of reviews so far. All suggestions welcome. Stay tuned as we move on to the third film in the series next. We've got 1999's Toy Story 2. Thanks for watching, and until next time, that's a wrap.